Good
Hey
morning,
Jordan,
Hitesh.
good
How are
morning.
you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm excited to chat today and dive into your Lakehead experience, academics, student life, all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
Um, I guess we'll get started. I'll introduce myself for those of you who haven't joined over the last few months. My name is Jordan. I am the International New and Social Media Officer here on the Lakehead University Thunder Bay campus. And today we are joined by Hitesh, and I'll pass it over to him to introduce himself.
So my name is Hitesh, as you might know. I'm taking computer science at Lakehead University in the Thunder Bay campus. I'm originally from West Godavari district of Andhra Pradesh, India. And yeah, that's pretty much about me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And to help our audience get to know you a bit better and just to chat a bit about what you've been up to over the last few months, what have you been doing since the beginning of social distancing and quarantine? Have you picked up any new hobbies?
Yeah, I sure did. I started like doing some gaming over the course of quarantine. I've been playing some first person shooters actually,
Hmm.
and I've been experimenting with like the cooking since like living alone and just staying at home. I've been like doing some more complex Indian dishes like butter chicken or some more like Indian sweets and stuff.
For
And
sure.
also like on the side, I've been expanding my knowledge on business and like how to how do business market online and like all that stuff. So it's been interesting for me.
For sure, yeah. And so I know you mentioned you've been experimenting with cooking and some of the more
Hmm.
complicated dishes.
Hmm.
Can you chat a bit about sort of what your favorite dishes are that you've cooked?
Yeah, so far the dish that turned really good like was butter chicken. And yeah, so butter chicken, and I made a sweet called kalakand out of
Hmm.
making my own homemade like Indian cheese. So that was really good. And yeah, I think I'm just like refining my dishes and like adding my own flavors to it and see how it goes. So yeah, it's been fun.
Awesome. Well, that's definitely one of my favorite dishes myself. We have quite a few restaurants in Thunder Bay that cook up some good butter chickens. I've been missing it, to be honest, but I know as soon as those restaurants open up, I'll be back to them as soon as possible. Um, so one of the first questions I like to ask, just to dive into your journey to Lakehead, is looking back a few years now to when you were deciding to study abroad and picking Canada compared to other countries.
Hmm.
What helped you pick Canada, and what stood out for Canada being the best option for you?
So growing up, I think at like eighth grade, it hit me that I wanted to study abroad because like one of my father's friends came to India and he would like tell me all about like how in the US infrastructure is, how the education system is over there, like, and how the knowledge based learning and like all the practical learning is. And I would get really excited to like I would wish that I could go there and like study. And eventually my father got a visa, work visa, to an opportunity to work in the States. So I think that was in like my ninth grade when my father moved to the States, and then eventually I moved to the States in my 11th grade. I did my 11th and 12th there. Like, I had no clue that I was going to go to Canada. And at I think at 12th grade, the final semester, everyone's like deciding what college to go to and like what the stuff is. And at my home, like all the uncles and aunties are like, you should go back to India. You should like go there and study and then come back for masters. And I'm like, I didn't come all the way here to like just go back and come back.
For sure.
So I was researching my options, and it turned out that, in my opinion, US was a bit costlier for me as per the tuition. That
Hmm.
was one of the factors. But then, like, I looked into one of my like other friends told me to look at Canada. He was doing a job in the US, so he recommended me to Canada, and then I just went in and researched, and I thought it was a good opportunity, given that the immigration, in my opinion, would be easier to go to, like for me. from my place. Instead of being a dependent on my father, I would be independent and like live on my own. So at that point, I chose like Canada would be something that I should consider, and I applied a little late to the
Hmm.
universities too, and yeah, but it all worked out at the end.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely glad to have you. I know you've been on campus or in Thunder Bay for 10 months roughly now.
Hmm.
And then you'll still have a few more years in the program and in Thunder Bay, which is definitely exciting. And then we'll see with the postgraduate work permit what you're able to secure in job
Yeah.
prospects, which I'm excited to hear about, obviously. Chatting about once you had decided about Canada and you'd narrowed down the country itself,
Hmm.
what helped you select Lakehead University itself?
I think what stood out um, during my admission process at Lakehead was like I applied to other universities too, but compared to other universities, like Lakehead was consistently hosting webinars and like doing some stuff that we would connect with, like what's the city like what's the study gonna look like, what are the class sizes, like all those like information you're like connecting on. I felt like on a person like one-on-one basis, so that I thought like if a university could like commit to a student before I came in here, I thought that um it would even commit more when I came in here and like I studied at Lakehead. So that was the factor.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely glad to hear that because I know some of those webinars and events that we hosted virtually to help familiarize our new students with our communities at Thunder Bay and Aurelia as well as Lakehead in general. Um, I helped run them last summer and they were definitely exciting. And that's exactly why we're running these sorts of Lakehead International live events throughout the year this year to stay connected with students, but also give students the opportunity to learn more about Lakehead in a very informal manner. You had also mentioned previously that picking Lakehead, other than regular communication and that connection you felt you had with them, the university also offered a specific course you enjoyed, which was the
Right.
computer science course, and a
Um,
specific stream. So, did you want to elaborate on that just a bit?
sure. Yeah. So I picked Lakehead because like other universities had computer science programs too, but then specific to Lakehead, I was interested in business too. So Lakehead had this nice combo of like you can take computer science and then you can take like business focus as well to like grow after. So that was really interesting to me, and then I also found out that Lakehead was one of the top research universities in Canada. So that was another driving factor. And yeah, those were like the main points for choosing Lakehead.
Awesome. And then chatting about obviously now, if you go through the typical journey, so you've narrowed it down to Canada, you've narrowed it down for to Lakehead, pardon me,
Hmm.
and then you get to the fact where now your weeks leading up to your journey to Thunder Bay.
Hmm.
Can you walk us through what you were most excited about and what you might have been more nervous about?
Sure. So I was excited about like my journey itself. Um, so my journey before I came here, it was tight like 3 day schedule. So my father, like when we moved to the States, we stayed in Ohio for my high school, like 11th and 12th. But my father eventually like moved to New York and then back to Pennsylvania for his job. So then when I was gonna move out, I was gonna go to Canada. We had to move back to Pennsylvania. So then it was like I think the weekend or something like that. We had to like shift our place, like our home to Pennsylvania. So I
Hmm.
rented a 26 feet truck. That was my first time driving it. So it was a 8.5 hour drive. So I rented the truck and um, we went to Pennsylvania. It was an 8.5 hour drive. And the next morning, we had packed everything. I had to make sure I had all my documents and like I had packed everything. And the morning after that, the early morning, we left off to New Jersey. Um, and from there, I flew to Toronto, and then Thunder Bay. So the journey itself was very exciting for me because like I like driving and like do just being the journey is so exciting to me. Um, the other thing I was excited about was orientation. um I was excited about like how I didn't want to miss orientation, so I was a bit nervous about if I was gonna make my visa on time or um
Yeah.
will it get delayed, because like I was so late. Like I was probably the person to apply the last in all Canada. So so from the moment I applied to my visa to to the date I got back, um to the date the passport was in my hand, stamped and ready
Hmm.
to go, it took me 13 days. So I think that's because like out of my whole school, of I think like 1,200 people graduating, I was the
Hmm.
only one who was going abroad to Canada. All
For
my other
sure.
Indian friends or whoever they were, they either stayed in the US or they went back to India. So no one like from at least from our school went to Canada. So I think like the traffic, the visa, student visas traffic from US is a bit like less compared to other countries. So that was easier for me, and it really relieved my stress on if I
For
was going to get
sure.
here on time or not.
Yeah.
And also, I was doing this. I was nervous about filming the My Journey to Lakehead audition. Like,
Hmm.
for those who don't know about it, it's like, um, it's it's about filming our journey to Lakehead. Um, and I did an audition before, which I was selected, and then I was like kind of mapping out how I would film all the journey and like um and it ended up turning really good because like because of this tight like schedule of travel, it
Hmm.
ended up I ended up liking it so much. um,
Awesome.
and even during my flight travel, I was like thinking, brainstorming of ideas I could like go and how could I film in the airplane stuff. So it was that was I was a bit nervous about that, and at the same time excited too. And I
For
was
sure.
nervous about like living on campus, not on campus. I mean like living, coming to the university and living here on my own. It's like fear of like unknown, because I never did it before. I was kind of nervous of how it's gonna be and stuff. Uh, but I was nervous, I guess, about like the freedom I was gonna get and stuff,
For
and
sure.
how I'm
Yeah.
gonna use it. And like I was excited to learn new life skills too.
Yep. I think that also speaks to, in general, the fact that since it would be your first time living on your own,
Hmm.
there's a certain unknown factor to it
Right.
of all these new things that you know you're going to experience, you know you're going to have to work through, but on your own.
Hmm.
And speaking to that, how was that experience for you? Has it been a positive one? Have you been more confident in your own independence?
Yeah, I think like at first I was really I didn't know what to do, like what's going to be next. But now I'm at a point like I developed those skills over time, and I'm like more confident
Mhm.
now. I'm more active in doing other stuff, and I take up opportunities when they come to me.
For
So
sure.
I think that really grew over time for me, and like yeah.
Awesome. And
So
then speaking, going back a bit to the orientation, I know you mentioned,
mhm.
um, pardon me, that you were really excited for participating in the orientation and
Yeah,
getting involved in that. I believe you have some photos to show the audience to kind of that represents orientation to you in that experience. So if you want to show those, that'd be
sure.
awesome.
Yeah.
And then if you could kind of explain what's going on in the photo, who's in the photo,
Hmm.
just giving us a bit of context and
Yeah,
background.
sure. I got it pulled up here. So this is one of the photos from the orientation day, the actual day where we were like going through the info of how the orientation is going to be, and like what information that we need to know. All the slides were up and like people were
Hmm.
explaining, and that was my mentor, Prajit. He was sitting next to me and like explaining all the stuff. And I think that's where I started actually. It was the start of me socializing with people at the university,
Hmm.
and like get to know more people, and especially like new students like myself who were there. So that
Of
was
course.
one. Um, and this is from orientation, but then we split it into groups. That was our science section. So
Hmm.
it was six of us that were split from the science group, and we went around campus looking for those like thunderbolts.
Yep,
Um, and we would explore the campus and see what like it would help us to like know where facilities were, where what important like areas were in the campus,
for
and
sure.
that was all that was really good. And that's that right there is Matthew. He's
Hmm.
in our computer science program, so like we work together on like classes and assignments and stuff. So it's really fun to like meet someone the very first day of orientation. That was in my program too.
And you've established that connection with him now, and I'm
Hmm.
sure you're able to help each other through the program and
Right.
work on assignments together and work in group projects when possible, of course.
Hmm.
And so, speaking about that scavenger hunt, obviously, you mentioned that it was a great opportunity to meet new people within
Hmm.
the science background, but also explore the Thunder Bay campus and learn the location, the physical location, but also the services and supports that are available within each department that you
Right.
were encouraged to go to. So I
Hmm.
think that was a great opportunity for you to have a hands-on experience to get familiarized with Lakehead
Yeah.
quite quickly.
Yes.
Of course, we probably didn't expect you to memorize every single support and service from that single day, but at least now
Yeah.
you're familiar where it might be an
Hmm.
option or it might be something you're interested, so you could at least go get more information at that point.
Yeah. Right.
So then chatting about moving into academics, obviously
Hmm.
kind of the main part of studying abroad is academics. We'll definitely chat about student life because I think that that's also a really significant experience or part of the
Right.
experience. But
Hmm.
looking back, how did you end up picking your program of computer science? Like, what were your thoughts in high school as a student, and how did your passions drive you towards computer science?
Uh, how I picked my program is like a bit interesting because I started off with picking off subjects I didn't like. Um, so I picked off social studies and like I picked off physics, chemistry, all the science subjects, and I was like, what is it that I'm most passionate about? Like, what is it that I can do without like even thinking about it? Like, oh, I can spend hours on it without getting bored and stuff. So when I was a kid, I always used to like, if my father bought a new phone, I used to open it up, go to settings, and like, I would go to each setting and then like each sub setting and see how it works and stuff. So if anything ever broke, I would like I would know where to go back and like how to fix it and stuff. And
Yes,
eventually, I became like this tech guy who would like advise people on what phone to buy, what laptop to buy, how to fix a
yes,
phone if something doesn't work and stuff. So that was interesting. It really drove me towards tech, technology in general, and like eventually I got fascinated of how like these personal assistants work, like Siri, Google Assistant, and all that stuff. So I was like, I couldn't like understand how they work. I couldn't like go back to those like I couldn't go into their setting and see how what the commands were, how they work. So it was really interesting and like how artificial intelligence like really takes form. So I became very interested in like machine learning and artificial intelligence
hmm,
because like nowadays it's like self-driving cars and um self-flying drones there that Amazon is testing for deliveries and stuff.
yep,
So that really interested me in going towards like um, artificial intelligence and machine learning. So in order to pursue that, I thought like what program should I take? Like how do I frame it? So I took like computer science,
hmm,
and I took business focus because like in case I was ever to like develop a software or something of that sort on my own or with a group of with a team or something, I would know how to like market it. I would know like who the target audience were and like how to like price it or how to like sell it to people so that it
definitely,
reaches
yeah.
everyone that I want it to reach. So
Awesome. Before we move into the next part, I just want to take a break here to answer some questions. I know I've seen plenty
Mhm.
of rolling in. I didn't want to interrupt though. One of the first questions we got here was with regards to so studying computer science, obviously, we acknowledge that people can do at-home learning with computer science, and they can kind of pick up the skills through their own practice, through online learnings. And I know you even mentioned that you enjoy the fact that computer science has these opportunities
Mhm.
um, to continue expanding your knowledge within the
Right.
field externally on top of everything you're learning at Lakehead. And their question was kind of with people learning at home and working without a certificate, without a degree, what's the need for doing a degree, or what's the need for that? And I think probably the most important part of that is that the companies still will, like some of the most significant companies, some of the most um, powerful tech companies will hire students that have a degree and have that background
Right.
knowledge and have a certificate. And of course, you're rewarded financially for that.
Mhm.
That's not to say that without a certificate you couldn't do your
Mhm.
freelancing, but with a certificate, of course, it holds that accreditation and it holds
Mhm.
that standard to say that your learning and your knowledge is a structured thought,
Mhm.
and it's something of years of experience with your professors teaching you and the faculty building that program. That's
Mhm.
years and years of knowledge coming together to make sure that you're prepared to move right into either continuing your education or continuing on into the career field.
Right.
But it's definitely something with all those online resources, it actually kind of it adds to that educational experience because you can continue building niche learning, niche knowledge markets, all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
And then we had another question. Does the university expect students to attend in person in the fall semester? So the fall semester is going to be primarily online. That's already been
Mhm.
announced. Um, there will be alternative delivery methods, and it has been released that a very limited number of courses will have limited in-person opportunities, such as labs or classroom experiences. I encourage each of our students to connect directly with their program chair or their faculty or their department to figure out exactly what their course or what the fall looks like. I know that the
Mhm.
course calendar has already been released, or pardon me, the timetable has already been released. And so once you know exactly which courses you need to complete, you will be able to determine exactly when they're being offered, how they're being offered, all that sort of all those details. One thing
Mhm.
to note though is that if there is a limited in-person opportunity on campus, those courses are also committing to the fact that if you're not able to join us on campus, you will still be able to complete that course remotely, or that lab experience remotely. So if you do have any questions, I encourage you to reach out directly to your own chair, your own program. Unfortunately, I can't speak to every single program in
Mhm.
one sentence, and I shouldn't because every program's unique. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. And then there is a question about fees and any increases in the fees. So for students that are looking to look over the fees that are for the upcoming year, if you head over to lakeheadu.ca/tuition, all of the fees are published for the next academic year. And then with regards to increases, Lakehead typically increases tuition rates each year to reflect any increases in the program, any new technologies, or any new courses being offered, and generally just they evaluate each individual course. So some courses you'll see a more significant increase, where other courses will see a smaller amount.
Mhm.
But like I said, all of the tuition rates are already posted for next year. And so you can certainly check out your individual program's tuition rates at lakeheadu.ca/tuition. So then diving back into the academics
Mhm.
and chatting about your program, obviously computer science, I wanted to hear about what you like most about it. What do you enjoy the most?
Mhm. So the thing that I enjoy most about my program is um it's I'm just like doing I'm like building up my knowledge now, like doing basic C programming and C++ and stuff. But like I always get opportunities to like expand my knowledge in computer science field, especially like online. If you go do some exercises which are on some websites, or even like pick up some extra courses to learn. There's always like free opportunities and all that kind of stuff. And also like there's high demand for like computer science in like computer science field, with like especially with like machine learning and artificial intelligence entering all the um like all the fields now, basically like health industry, the food industry, or delivery, or whatever it is. So
Hmm.
I think that there's a big opportunity to grab, and I can like pick and choose which industry I want to go to. Like under computer science, I can go to like car industry. I can go like to the subcategories are like huge.
For
And
sure.
also at Lakehead, like the class sizes are small, right? So that helps me to get to the professor easier, and like they're more approachable that way. With like 30 students in one of my classes, just have like 30 students, where we can like approach the professor. If you have any question, he like answers it immediately and stuff. Um, and also like when we have labs and stuff, the GS really take time to explain us. Um, if I didn't know any, like I wasn't able to code some kind of program, he would like come in, explain me all the fundamentals I need to know, and make sure that I know all the stuff before I like take any assignments or exams and stuff like that. But yeah, even professors are flexible with like deadline. If when I was like once I with my computer science class, I
Hmm.
was a bit sick, feeling unwell. So like at that time, I like messaged him right like I think it was 5 hours before the deadline, and I was like, I did this much. This is how much I could have got done, and I couldn't like get past that point. I'm feeling really sick. So he then extended the deadline for me, and that's like professors really are understanding of like how the students feel, and like what stress they're going through, and like what the course load is on them. So that's really good.
For sure. And I think you're probably you're quite thankful, obviously. I know
Hmm.
you've said that before, that the professor was able to extend the deadline, and having that connection with the professor and easy access to them because of the small classroom environment is
Hmm.
important to making these sorts of requests, because obviously the professor can recognize that this may have been your first time ever submitting something late, or they see you in class every single day, and so they know that you're committed to it, and it's truly just the fact
Right.
that you fell ill and you need to extend your deadline. Obviously, that speaks to every professor individually. I can't blanketly say all of them are going to extend deadlines.
Hmm.
It's something that you have to make the request and ask and work with.
Right.
Obviously, there's academic supports that come into play there too.
Hmm.
Something that you mentioned, though, that I wanted to highlight and kind of echo is the demand for computer science right now.
Hmm.
It traditionally, even maybe 10, 15 years ago, was very focused on technology. So,
Yeah.
developing phones, laptops, TVs, all those very tech focused. But
Hmm.
with the growth in computer science, every single industry, almost across the entire world, and across that entire spectrum, has a computer science component or has some sort of technology component that could be advanced through computer science.
Hmm.
And so I think it speaks to the plethora of job opportunities that will be there for when students graduate. One thing that I
Exactly.
noticed a few students have asked is about Python, and I'm not familiar with Python.
Hmm.
Has Python learning been involved in your program, or have you learned yourself even?
Uh, Python has not yet been introduced for me, because like I'm just a first year undergrad computer science student.
Hmm.
So our program is like in the first year it's just C and C++ plus plus for us.
Yeah.
So there's 3 more years to go for me. I'm not really sure about like if Python is being offered or not. So like I guess the program chair might know better about that.
For sure. Yeah, and we sat down with the program chair,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Chanduri, and he did a full faculty Friday. So if you head over to our YouTube channel, it's Lakehead University, and the playlist is Lakehead International Lives. There is a faculty Friday dash computer science webinar. It was a full hour where myself, a few of my colleagues sat down with Dr. Chanduri, and we asked him these sorts of questions. He walked us through some of the basic study areas, learning outcomes. He answered plenty of questions from students. I believe we had almost 100 people on the webinar,
Mm-hmm.
and he answered, I don't even know, probably I would say 30 or
Mm-hmm.
40 questions from students, and it was a really great session. So for anyone who's interested in computer science, anyone who's potentially joining computer science, who's received an offer, I would encourage you to head over to that webinar, watch it. You'll really, I think, fall in love with the content that we cover and what we chat about. I also have seen some comments about machine learning and artificial intelligence, which is a very, very in demand and popular subject field or topic right now, and he definitely covers that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Another student asked, is a student visa compulsory for my fall semester, or can I apply later? So for that student, I certainly encourage you, as soon as you receive your offer letter from Lakehead University, or your letter of acceptance from Lakehead University, take that letter and then submit an application to your visa office. So the online visa application is exactly that. It's online. So even though visa offices are closed and VACs are closed in some countries, there are still opportunities, and you can still start your application online. And essentially, it puts you in the queue to start being processed. If you're not able to submit biometrics, for example, like photos or fingerprints, or if if you don't have your final grades from high school because, for example, CBSE board results have been delayed by a month or two, fill out an explanatory note explaining exactly how you intend on receiving those. So whether it's IELTS, whether it's your final grades, whether it's biometrics, and explain exactly how you plan on meeting those requirements and what that timeline looks like. Of course, the immigration services and those offices are taking into consideration the current pandemic. They know that students are in very unique situations, and they are working with students on all of this. One note I will say is that they've committed to the fact that if you're not able to complete biometrics for your initial application, you will not be refused for not submitting biometrics. Of course, their hope is still to have biometrics completed before you arrive in Canada or before they submit that study permit.
Mm-hmm.
But the key thing there is that you won't be refused. So I'm just reading through. I know that we got a few more comments too.
Mm-hmm.
So then we had another comment about they've already applied for a visa, but they're not sure if the Canadian government will let them enter based on border closures and whatnot. So yes, that is something that we're taking into consideration too, and exactly why, of course, we've looked into this online delivery mode for our courses. We're hoping for some positive news from immigration to see the borders open up and have our students join us. But it's something that we'll have to wait and see, unfortunately. As much as we can advocate for our international students to join us, we can't open the borders ourselves, or just because it's our university, they can't let you through necessarily. Have you opted for co-op? That's a question that we got.
Yes, I have taken like honors bachelor's of computer science with co-op. So after my second year, I think during my mid third or like fourth year, I could like apply for co-ops and um begin to like do co-ops and stuff. But there is like a minimum grade requirement on those.
Yeah.
So in my course, in my like all the computer science courses, I need at least like 80% and above to qualify for applying for co-op.
Awesome. And then we had a question about tuition during co-op. Unfortunately, I don't know the exact answer to that. But if you head over to lakeheadu.ca/co-op, that is our page that gives you full details about some of those application requirements, some of the details that you'll need to know going forward. And then we also have a dedicated co-op advisor, and her name is Megan, and she's great. So if you connect with her, she can answer that exact question. Or if you want to connect with us on social media, so if you want to send us a message, we can certainly connect you with Megan or get the answer from Megan and pass it on to you. So moving on, and now that we've covered academics, I know that I wanted to dive into student life, and that involves working part-time, living off campus, the Global Ambassador Program, all that sort of stuff. To start off, I guess maybe we'll do accommodations and living off campus. Could you share with the audience sort of what your living environment is, what your accommodations are like?
So before I came to Canada, I think like 15 days prior to coming here, I looked at Kijiji. I looked at like off-campus housing, and I found this house to be like a little bit outstanding than others. So it is like a 3-bedroom house. It's an apartment. It's an owner's suite in an apartment. So like the owner lives with us. And there's one more. My roommate is actually from Philippines. He came here to do a 1-year graduation, I think diploma or something and he works at Life Labs now. And like it's like fully furnished, like everything included, including like bed sheets, utensils, and like all that stuff. All I needed was like clothes and some groceries to cook for myself. So it's really good. But I do pay a bit higher than others who are staying like in shared rooms or off campus. But I think with the furniture and stuff, it's worth it. I pay like
Yeah, and
$540 a month.
furniture is a significant expense, of course, for students that are living off campus. If they want to get a full bedroom set, or even getting, I mean, the TV, the furniture in the living room, a dining room, that can add up really quickly. And many off-campus housing options don't include that. So I think that you probably lucked out in getting a furnished apartment or a furnished bedroom and living accommodations. And then that means that basically you pack your clothes, you pack your personal items, you buy your food, but everything else is provided. Is that correct? Awesome. And then looking into the commute itself, so where are you situated in Thunder Bay? How long does it take you to commute to Lakehead, Thunder Bay?
I'm in like the south side of Thunder Bay, the Fort William, and it's like a 4-minute walk from my house to the bus stop, and I take number 16, and it takes me like 20 minutes, and it leaves me right outside Agora, so like right on the campus. And it's like I got used to it now. It doesn't seem like too much of a commute. It's just like I got used to it. I know what the bus timings are, and like when to go out, when to leave the house, when to like get into the bus. So that's like I don't think commute is a problem for me at all.
For sure, yeah. And then also speaking to that, obviously, a 25-minute commute certainly might seem like a while for some students, and in other cases, people might think that that's really convenient. But it's something that you work into your schedule, just like if you're living on campus, for example, and your commute's a 5-minute walk. You become accustomed to that 5-minute walk. You get to sleep in a bit more. So it kind of changes your schedule, and you work around that commute. So, you know, at the end of the day, you have to get to campus. You have to be in the classrooms. Obviously, that's not specific to this fall in this case, but in general, it's something that you build into that.
Right.
I'm curious to know, based on your experience of living off campus and shopping for yourself, I know that you mentioned a funny story about your first experience grocery shopping. Could you share that story and the photo that you have to represent it?
Yeah, sure. So it was our first week in Thunder Bay, and we went grocery shopping with my roommate. So that was at the bus stop. We didn't anticipate how much we were gonna buy on that day. So we ended up buying for the whole month. It was like, I think it was for me, it was like 4 bags for him. It is like only part of what we shopped. And we were standing at the bus stop. It was probably like 11 to 12 kilograms each. and we like literally pushed the carts to the bus stop, and then like we carried that stuff. Um,
Yep.
and we were deciding whether we should take the bus or should we like, or should we take taxi? We were like, we don't have a job yet. We don't want to spend too much money. Let's just go
Yeah.
for the bus. But the bus was like a little bit far away from where houses. It's like a 6 minute walk. If we were like just walking, it would be easier for us. But then with all that stuff, the 6 minute walk then became a 30 minute walk with
Yeah.
all that load. We were like stopping every 2 minutes. We were like carrying that stuff every 5 minutes. We would stop.
Yeah.
So that was like a fun memory. I wouldn't like trade. I if I were to go back to that moment, I wouldn't choose taxi at all. And that memory itself is like valuable to me.
Awesome. So then, chatting a bit about living and working in Thunder Bay now. I know we
Hmm.
just got a question about part-time jobs. So could you chat a bit about your part-time working experience? And
Hmm.
I know that you had one job in the fall and where that was, what you did, and then you changed jobs for the winter term.
Right. So when I came here, I like I took Smart Serve, which is like a alcohol handling certification, and I was hoping to get
Hmm.
a job at a restaurant or something as a server. But then I just ended up like going to a grocery store, which was like 3 minute walk from our house. So that was literally the first place I walked into with my resume, and like I was like, I want to apply to work here. Can I? Who do I speak to? And then the owner comes up and she's like, she looks at our resumes. Me and my roommate both went to that place. It's Renko Family Foods. It's like a small grocery store. So she looks at my resume and she's like, oh, so you've worked in a restaurant before? And she's like, would you be interested in working in the deli? I'm like, yeah, sure. Uh, are you fine with handling the meat? I'm like, okay. And she's like, you're hired. I was like shocked because like many people many students who are with us there, like they scare me off. They scared me off about like the part-time job situation. They're like, it'll take you at least 10 days of work to like at least find one job that will look at your resume or whatever. But I think like applying in person
Hmm.
and like going to that place physically and being there and handing the copy will immediately like put you on top of the list, and if their priorities match, you get hired. Um, and then
For sure.
eventually I worked there till winter, and I shifted jobs. I went to Wackies. They have, I think, constantly they're doing open interviews on Wednesdays, I think. So I went on a Wednesday and I ended up giving an interview. They're like, we'll let you know if we have any. Like the server position itself requires a lot of experience in Canada. So my me serving in US is different than like in Canada because like they have different rules and certifications to go through.
Hmm.
Um, so then he was like, uh, 2 days later, he called me and he was like, we have a buyback position. Would you be interested? And I'm like, okay, sure. That sounds cool. I'll be there. And yeah, I ended up working as a buyback. And now it's due to the COVID, they're opening back up, but now it's closed for now.
Yeah.
And they recently just opened the patio for dine out, and
Hmm.
takeouts are open, but the bar isn't open yet. So I'm just at home. uh, and yeah.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned the fact that obviously um, having the serving experience and having a lot of it at that is something that restaurants typically take into consideration.
Hmm.
From speaking from experience, I worked at a restaurant for 2 years after working at a fast food restaurant for 4 years. So in
Hmm.
total 6 years, I worked different types of jobs, and then finally I moved up to a server position.
Hmm.
Obviously, the standards that the restaurant that I was at to have the knowledge about the food and knowledge
Hmm.
of the menu, the drinks, and have that all combined so I can make proper recommendations and serve the guests properly
Right.
was a big feat, of course, to conquer. So
Hmm.
I'm sure you'll get there over the next few years as you build your experience as a barback.
Right. Hmm.
You'll be there very soon, hopefully. And then speaking a bit about being hired on the spot. I really like that you chatted about the fact that giving your resume in person kind of shows initiative to
Mm-hmm.
the owner or the manager,
Right.
compared to just submitting your resume to 30 different locations and just hoping one of them looks at it. It actually
Mm-hmm.
shows that you were more committed to actually finding that job and finding a job that you were interested in or that you
Right.
had some relative experience with.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we've had a few questions from some students over the last few minutes. So there was one question about getting a visa as an Iranian student. So I mean, certainly Iranian people have been on campus for quite some time now, and they do get visas. If you actually head over to our YouTube channel, we sat down with a student from Iran. Her name was Kiana, and we had a really great conversation with her on a Thunderwolf live video, and we chatted about her academics in the MBA business program.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we also chatted about her journey to Lakehead and her experience living in Thunder Bay and living in Canada. And that was a great conversation, and I really enjoyed that session. So for that student, if you want to head over there and watch it, you can kind of familiarize yourself with another Iranian's journey to Canada and journey to Lakehead. And if you have any questions, you can always comment on that video, and I can connect you with Kiana after that point. Another question we had is, isn't there an agreement after joining a job that you can't switch other jobs? So for that question, it's a unique question, I would say, because
Mm-hmm.
in certain jobs you do sign contracts in a sense where
Mm-hmm.
you might sign a contract to work that job for an entire year.
Mm-hmm.
But Canada has a really progressive legislation and policies that revolve around the working environment
Right.
to make sure that employees and workers alike are protected.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're not enjoying your job, if you find a new job that you like better, the opportunities to switch are there. They're simple typically. Obviously, there's very unique contracts
Right.
where you might be stipulated that you have to work at a company. If there's some sort of intrinsic benefit, they might have you pay back something. So I've heard of companies where they'll pay you to go to school. So they'll pay you to work, and then they'll also pay for your schooling.
Mm-hmm.
But then at that, say for example, after you graduate, if you leave before your year is up with them, they'll
Mm-hmm.
ask you to pay back some of your schooling or your
Right.
tuition. That's
Mm-hmm.
just one example. But speaking more directly to that question, can you switch jobs? Yes, of course. You can switch jobs typically
Mm-hmm.
without any fuss or headache.
Right.
Another question or another topic I want to chat about before I want to acknowledge, I know we're coming up close to the hour, is the Global Ambassador Program. And I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on it and why you joined it.
So the reason I joined the Global Ambassador Program was like I saw this opportunity pop up, and it's like, do you want to help more international students know about Lakehead or like help them understand immigration to Canada and stuff? So I was really into that at that time. Like before I came here, I wanted more people to be aware of like studying abroad and value that degree would bring to them. So I really wanted to join that because like once I get in with the 50 people of global ambassadors, it'll be like a community of students. So then we can like share ideas and like um, come up with something that will help people. And like the benefit I had joining global ambassador program is like the more social connections I made. So like I was exposed to even more active part of the student community who like grabbed the opportunity just like me, and like and so if I were to like miss something that was there, I would immediately get a message saying, "Hey, have you looked at this? Would you be interested in going and doing this?" For example, like we went tubing when Lakehead was like in the winter. Lakehead was giving us an opportunity to go to the ski hill just for $10. So I
Mm-hmm.
went to that. It was really fun, but I wish I acted early on and like got the skiing equipment so that I can ski. But tubing was fun too. It was nice, nice time. I hope I took my gloves with me, but I didn't, and my hands were freezing all day long. So, um, if ever any of you guys go tubing, make sure you take your gloves with you.
For
Um,
sure.
but yeah, I really wanted to help people join us here at Lakehead and like in Canada in general. So that was my motivation of joining Global Ambassador Program.
Awesome. Well, we're certainly happy to have you, and I know we still have a few years left with your program, and hopefully with the Global Ambassador program as well. Helping us as students ask questions, answer questions, learn about Lakehead, learn about the journey to Canada itself, because it's definitely an exciting one.
Right.
Obviously, you mentioned about going to Mount Baldy and tubing.
Mm-hmm.
I would certainly recommend for all students to have the proper winter gear anytime you're taking an adventure in the winter,
Mm-hmm.
dressing for the weather. If you have a thick jacket, mitts, hat, scarf, all that sort of stuff, you can stay warm because you've dressed for it. But as soon as you forget one of those, as soon as you forget mitts, your hands, for example, are going to get cold pretty fast.
Yeah.
I'm chatting about the Global Ambassador Program and kind of when you recognized at what moment did you realize that you were meant to be at Lakehead, that everything had fallen in place,
Mm-hmm.
and that you were excited for the next step of the journey?
So it was a training retreat. And like we were getting our shirts and stuff. I have a photo of that. Um, so this was one of the you were obviously there and like you're doing that photo
Yeah.
taking, and we would like design our own like names on them. And like the Global Master shirt itself. And like the community at that point, I felt like so I'm here now. Like in high school, I used to be so very like social and stuff.
Hmm.
I used to be shy, introverted, and like not take part in any opportunities that popped up. So like I used to be in my own world, caring about my 4.0s or my A grades or B grades or whatever it is. So this at this moment I felt like, oh, now I can do more. I can like grab opportunities. I can I'm like I'm independent. I have freedom, and like that point really changed how I my mindset and like how I think about stuff now, as opposed to
Awesome.
like at high school. So
Of course, yeah. And I think that something that another student recently on one of our lives mentioned is the fact that um, who you were in sort of what you did in high school. So whether you were more reserved or shy, um, coming to university is almost a reset button, and
hmm
it gives you an opportunity to mold yourself and be a better person and be who exactly you want to be, and be more individual, be more independent, and have that freedom to explore. Um, and so, before we move on to the last question I have for you, I
hmm
know we have a few minutes left, so I want to answer a couple more questions. There's one: if a student doesn't get their visa until August for the fall intake, can they switch to January or defer their offer to January? And for that student, there are deadlines to request a deferral for graduate studies. If I'm not mistaken, it's June 28th. And so deferral requests have to be submitted by that deadline. Otherwise, there's no guarantees that you will receive that deferral. Um, for example, though, if you have yet to apply for your visa, I certainly encourage you to do that as soon as possible. And then, like I was saying before, if you use your letter, your offer letter, or your letter of acceptance to apply for that, and there's any missing criteria or details that have been delayed due to the COVID pandemic, you can certainly have an explanatory note as to how you're going to meet that criteria and when you're going to meet that criteria. And the immigration officers will take that into consideration when they're looking at it. Another positive thing is that they've committed that if biometrics are the only missing item on your visa application, they will not refuse you simply because you haven't submitted biometrics. They understand that many of the locations that accept biometrics or accept students to go and complete those are not doing them right now. And so they've taken that into consideration. Another question we have is with regards to a bank for GICs. Unfortunately, I don't have a specific bank to recommend for GICs. If you head over to our Facebook page, though, so Lakehead University International, and there's a group in there called the Incoming Class of 2020. It's a group of over 350 students, and you can ask that question of your peers to see what banks other people have done for GICs. You can work through it. I've seen some students say that they've already completed it and they're happy to help other students with that process. But I certainly can't recommend a particular bank to go for your GIC. Another question, and Paula, thanks for bringing this up, is that this upcoming week, or in the next few weeks at least, we're going to hopefully launch an immigration session. So every Tuesday we'll be live with our immigration advisor to answer your questions with relations to study permits, immigrating to Canada, all that sort of stuff. So it's come to that time. The last question I have for you, what advice would you give to future students? I know we have quite a few audience members still with us, so speaking directly to them, what advice do you give to them?
Personally, the advice I would give to any new student that wants to come to Canada or Lakehead University and pursue an education is that they should be self-aware of themselves and know what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are, and know if that program is right for them. Because people might be around them saying that, oh, you shouldn't do this, or you should do that. But it all comes down to you and how you think. And if you are accountable of your actions, then you'll be much more satisfied when you come here and like pursue your degree or pursue whatever you want. So always like take control of your life, be self-aware, and like decide on what you want to do, and never like just follow someone who says like go to Canada and do this. You should like go and do research about like university, the program, and like what the immigration process is and all that stuff. If you don't have the information, you will like eventually be a victim. Like some consultancies I know are doing like fraud and stuff, scamming people and taking their money. So if you don't have the knowledge, you'll be a victim. So don't be a victim. Have the knowledge. Be self-aware and be accountable.
And something I wanted to echo what you mentioned is when you're picking your program and considering your strengths and weaknesses, your passions, where they lie, picking a program that you're truly interested in, one that you know that you can be successful in, is really important, especially when you take into factor that you're going to study harder, you're going to enjoy it more when you want to learn the topic and you want to learn the subject. If you select a program based on what everyone else tells you to do, it might not be such a happy outcome, in the sense that you might not be as satisfied with it. So that's something that you should always take into consideration. And thank you for mentioning that. And then, of course, as you make your journey to Canada, we're happy to assist in the process, and we're happy to provide you with more details and more information. But at the end of the day, of course, being self-aware of what that process is and kind of learning it yourself and making sure you're up to date on that whole process, and making sure that if there's any issues that arise, that you question them and you get the answers. We're happy to be here and assist you through that. So that does bring us to the end of the hour. I know I've just got a warning that we have a minute left before we're booted off. So I want to thank you, Hitesh, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We had a great conversation for sure. We covered a lot, and we answered hopefully a lot of questions too from our students and our audience members. And hopefully we'll see everyone tomorrow on our Wednesday weekly with our undergraduate and our graduate admissions teams. We'll be there to answer any of your admissions, applications, related questions. Otherwise, I'll say bye for now, and thanks again for joining us.
See you.